believers. In today's video, I'm doing my books I munched this summer. Because yes, as you guys know, I only managed to read 2 books in July, so I decided to tag it on to my August TBR, and so it ended up being 5 books, 3 books in August, 2 books in July, and now we're on to September, and I'm finally getting around to shooting this. So let me tell you what I thought of the books that I read in the summer. This summer was one by Maxwell, which I've had on my shelf for I think 2 years, and that is The Last Magician, the cover that makes me go all gooey and mooey, and I absolutely just like go crazy with this cover, and that is the reason I picked it up, and also because the title sounded pretty cool as well. I didn't even read the blurb until after I had got it home. But yes, so in July I read The Last Magician and I really enjoyed it. I gave it about a 4.5 stars out of 5. The characters are very believable, their interactions are entertaining, you care about them, they've all got their own little stories and what's happening in their lives and their past and their histories and how it affects them and how they behave today. There are some twists and turns, some that I saw coming, some that I didn't, some that I really liked, some that I was like eh, but it's definitely a fun, captivating read, and I am looking forward to reading the next one, which I am so glad that I waited 2 years to read it, because the next one comes out, I believe, this month or next month or something like that. The other book that I read in July is one that I no longer have because I gave it back to my friend. She let me borrow it, and that is The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. That one is more of a fable about following your dreams, and it follows the life of this guy, and he goes to find his dream and what he's looking for. He is basically on a quest to discover his treasure, and he's actually on a path that he thought he was supposed to follow. So he's a shepherd, and he thinks he's gonna go and marry, you know, like a merchant's daughter. And on his way, he meets somebody that kind of takes him off that path and starts speaking to him about finding your treasure, finding your dream. And so he decides to go completely in a different direction and give up everything he kind of has. Sorry, my cat's screaming. And find his truth, his dream, his passion. It's very nice. So he goes on this long quest, and it doesn't seem to be adding up, and you're like as frustrated as him. He's like, but I need to do this, and then things keep taking him off path, which is exactly the way it is when you're trying to reach your dream. You know, it keeps just no. But what's so great, of course, about the fable is that it shows you that all the stops he makes and the time that it takes and the detours and everything, it all is woven together in a beautiful way to get him to where he needs to be when he needs to be there. And then, you know, of course comes the moral of the story of why you should follow your dreams, and how sometimes your dream could be right in front of you the entire time, and it's just a beautiful, nice fable. The next book that I read this summer, actually no, I read The Last Magician in August. I read this book in July, and that was Nevernight by J. Kristoff. So this is another one that I had on my shelf for about 2 to 3 years, and I'm kicking myself for not reading sooner because I absolutely devoured this book. It was possibly my favorite book of the summer. Yeah, I think it was. I gave it, of course, a 5 out of 5 stars. So Nevernight is fantasy at its finest, with its own like cultures and lands and religion, and it's awesome. And basically there's Mia Kavere, who is the shadow. She controls the shadows, and she has a power that not many people understand or can relate to, and she doesn't even understand herself. I believe she's called the Darken. If I can remember correctly, yeah, she's called a Darken, and basically she goes to a school of assassins, and they have to go through a series of courses, like a school for assassins. They have to go through a series of courses and get graded in order to become blades, and when they become blades, they then can go out into the real world and leave this oppressive but magical and dark school and go out and take vengeance on whoever has wronged them in their lives, but of course also carry out tasks of retribution for the goddess I believe it was. And basically it follows Mia Kavere, who is the main girl Darken woman, and her experience on her way to get to this school, and also what happens in the school and what happens after the school, and just everything she endures and all the people that she meets. It has twists and turns and things that still affect me when I think about them right now, and you can read it as a standalone. There is more to the series, and I do believe I'm definitely going to read it, but you can read it as a standalone. Like I won't say happily, because things happen that I'm not happy about, but I could happily leave this series as is, and like it's a complete book. Another thing that I really liked about this book is that the narrator speaks to you, the reader, in footnotes. So something will be said, and then there'll be a little star next to it, and you go down to the footnotes, and he's written something that either explains more about what was just said and gives you a bit of insight and history into it, or it just has something really funny like get your head out of the gutter, or don't be ridiculous, blah 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 blah, or I know you're thinking this, or something like that. But it just adds to the experience and the enjoyment of reading it. And yes, I definitely enjoyed reading Nevernight, and I do believe I will be picking up the next one in the near future. This summer, I also read Legendary by Stephanie Garber, the second to Caraval. I was so excited to read this book. This one follows the life of her sister Tella and another Caraval game. However, it's very, very different to the first Caraval, and it doesn't feel much like a game. I sadly did not enjoy this one as much as I enjoyed Caraval. Basically, I think Tella is a really great character to read. She has some funny thought processes going through her mind. She's definitely the more outgoing and adventurous sister. There are some things she does where you're like, adventure or no adventure, why would you do that? And there are some choices she makes where, you know, they're a bit selfish, and you're like, she's a bit of a selfish character, which I think for me as well. I was like, well, I want to see what happens, but I'm not rooting for you because you're being selfish. There are a lot of new characters, a lot of intriguing loops and twists and turns in this book, and I'd probably give it a 3.5 to 4 stars. What I will say about this one though, which I really, really loved, is that we do get a greater insight into Legend and into who Legend is. And the fifth and final book that I read this summer was Iron King by Julie Kagawa. This was also another really fun read, and I give it about a 4 stars out of 5 stars. It has a lot of whimsy to it, and some things definitely remind me of Alice in Wonderland, particularly a Sith cat, they call it, but is basically the Cheshire Cat, and he is hilarious and he is fun, and it's nice to spend time with this Sith cat, and also it goes into the Fade Court. And basically, our ordinary girl, or assumingly ordinary girl, Megan Chase, discovers that her father is the Fae King. So basically her brother is taken, and you know, she's like, well, you can't have my brother. So she follows, she goes into this Fae world to try and bring back her brother, but then she ends up discovering that she is the daughter of the Fae King, and everything's going topsy-turvy, and maybe they're not going to be so willing to let her leave, and she has to choose between her normal life as a human, as she thought she was, or her other half, which is the Fae King's daughter, and that life, and a handsome prince. And those are all the glorious books that I read this summer. It was supposed to be 8 books, 4 books in July and 4 books in August, but yes, I think I mentioned it already, but I was going on a writing sprint because I was planning on going back to work this September, because, you know, September is when term time starts, and so I was cramming in as much writing as possible, so I didn't get as much reading done as I liked. So 5 books instead of 8 is not terrible, and I will touch on more related to my writing journey and what I have ended up doing this month, etc, etc, in my writing journey number 19, 20, whichever one is coming up next at the end of this month. And that is all for today. Until next time, I'll see you. Bye!